Blub blub. First of all, I want to tell everyone thank you so much for all the get well messages. Really wasn't expecting that and I really appreciate it.
You guys are the best.
And so today I'm going to be working on the first ghost entry. It's not really too much going on in this page, but I oddly did find some difficulties with that Polaroid, which is not normally the case for me. And I was actually expecting the ectoplasm sample to be the more difficult part.
I took my wife's makeup. I don't think she'll notice.
And so for the ectoplasm, I kind of wanted to have a different texture. I could just put down some gouache paint, but I feel like that would kind of be cheap, especially since I've been adding glitter and a bunch of other stuff to these pages. And so my thought process here is I could probably get some of that epoxy and tint that green, and then that can act as the ectoplasm on the page. So I don't necessarily have the right color, but I think if I mix in a little blue, yellow,
it won't come out
into that green, I can get the perfect color.
You know, just in case it bleeds through.
So you actually don't need too much, just a little pinch of that powder, and I was easily able to tint that resin. Now I am using Gorilla Epoxy, so my time limit's gonna be really short, so I am gonna have to work really fast here.
I'm just gonna put that off to the side to dry for now.
Now, although that resin does cure in about 5 minutes, it does stay a little tacky for about 10 to 12 hours, so I'm not going to be able to mess with it for a good while. So in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and start working on that Polaroid. So we got my spare journal here. We're going to open up to a clean page, and because I am going to be heavy-handed with that ink, I'm going to put something behind it just so it doesn't bleed through. So using my brush pen, I'm just going to put a generous amount of black ink, and I'm just going to be adding a white ghostly outline here. Now the drawing doesn't have to be perfect because I can go ahead and edit that afterwards on my phone. Nothing too drastic, just a couple of changes here and there. So to do this, I'm just going to water down some acrylic and add a couple layers until I find a happy medium. And then, you know, we're just going to do a little edit here, a little line work there, and then we can go ahead and print that off.
I hope you're not sentimental with this coffee, because it's gotta go.
So we're going to go ahead and grab my cutting board, and then we can go ahead and cut that down to size. And my reference image here has really thick borders on that Polaroid, so I got to be careful not to cut too close to those edges. And then just a little water to revitalize the eternal coffee.
No, I'm not joking. This is the last Polaroid. After this, I'm throwing this away.
And then using my fan brush, I'm going to go ahead and just stir that up.
I really hate dipping this because my fingers always get really sticky afterwards.
And then we're going to give that Polaroid just a little coffee bath, just for a few minutes. So it's been roughly 15 minutes or so, and the Polaroid should be good to go now. And I just want to add a little extra texture to this Polaroid, so I'm going to go ahead and add some coffee, and then for the fun of it, I'm going to throw some salt on there.
It's not dry, but I think I can still work around the page, as long as I'm careful.
And our Polaroid turned out pretty alright. The salt did add a little texture to the Polaroid, but nothing too drastic. And then let's rip the image to try to match that reference the best that we can. And then to help blend in those edges, just a little bit of gouache paint.
Alright, this is probably a bad idea, but one of the corners looks like it's burned, so I'm gonna go ahead and try to burn it. You know, I don't know what I was expecting. Wasn't expecting that.
Well, let's go ahead and try to rip it up again. And then this time around, instead of using a torch, let's go ahead and use some gouache paint and use that to try to mimic those scorch marks. In hindsight, I probably should have just done that to begin with. And because I'm still not liking how this ghost is looking, I'm going to use a little bit of watered down acrylic just to try to add some shape to it.
I'm going to give it a second coffee bath just to get some color back into this thing. Believe it or not, but I did work on the Polaroid off camera a little bit, and I'm still not happy with it.
And I'm just going to add a little brown acrylic here.
You know what? Close enough. It looks fine.
And now we can go ahead and move on to the little drawing in the corner. Now, if we use the previous page as a reference, we'll notice that I didn't add too much highlights to this. It's very minimal, but mostly just shading. So to keep that consistency, I'm just going to do that here as well. So written on this page, there's a line that says that Stanford hadn't slept for 2 nights. So I want to reflect that by having the title of this page be really scratchy. And I want to add a lot of ink spillage on those edges, just to show that he's a little unstable at the moment. And then for all that red ink, we're going to go ahead and repeat the technique that we previously used and just add Sharpie with a little bit of gouache paint on top. And then I'm going to add a little extra gouache paint around the corners just to make the page look a little more rugged. And I like to keep the Polaroid on the page while I'm working on it, just so I can kind of see where my boundaries are. And for the little ghost drawing, I'm just going to go ahead and grab anywhere from 3 to 5. That should be enough for this little drawing down here. And once I finish up with that, I can go ahead and start writing out everything on this page. And so written on this page, Ford is just talking about how he's trying to get rid of this ghost that's inside his cabin, but in accident, he ends up summoning more of them. And that's kind of what starts this whole documentation of all these ghost types. And I might be wrong on this, but it looks like there's nothing written underneath this Polaroid, at least as in the regular ink. It does have a little bit of a blacklight message. It's a little hard to make out, but it's basically a message on a tombstone that he read. If I am wrong and there is a message underneath this Polaroid, if someone can let me know what that says, I'll make sure to go back and add it to the page.
Still a little sticky, but I think I can add some ink on top of this.
I don't know how well that's going to hold. It might just smear off really easily, it might not. I did end up smudging it with a paper towel afterwards and it kind of stayed on, but with time we'll see if it actually sticks permanently or not. And then I'm just going to add a little tape to that Polaroid and we're going to go ahead and put that in the journal.
It's a little hard to see in here, so I'm just going to turn on the light real quick.
And with that, that concludes the first ghost page. Pretty excited to work on this section. Next page is going to be pretty easy, it's just a bunch of words. A little worried about that drawing next to it, but I think I can handle it.